Okay, so today's a very momentous listening session in the scope of the whole channel because it's our first Messiaen episode. Olivier Messiaen is perhaps one of the most famous, or the most famous, French early to late 20th century composer. Um, his most famous work is probably Quartet for the End of Time, which he wrote during World War II. This piece that we're going to be looking at today is for large orchestra. It was written in the 1950s, I believe, and it's called Chronochromie. This score that we're looking at is published by Alphonse Leduc, Paris. The instrumentation for this piece is 4-3-5-3, and then 4-4-3-1, and then for percussion we have three performers just dedicated to pitch percussion: Glock, xylophone, and marimba. And then somebody else on chromatic bells, it looks like. Then some pitched gongs and strings. And the recommended number of strings is 16, 16, 14, 12, 10. So Messiaen was also an ornithologist and organist, in addition to being a composer. He lived from 1908 all the way until 1992 and taught almost throughout his life. Taught a lot of composers, among them Xenakis, Boulez, Marais, Stockhausen, Kurtog, Jacques Two, George Benjamin, basically anyone who was studying composition at the Paris Conservatoire between 1966 and 1978. When I was first introduced to Messiaen's music, the way that it was taught to me was that it's sort of like Debussy, but made more colorful and almost modernist, and he was fascinated with things like modes of limited transposition, what he called modes of limited transposition. So not just the whole tone scale, but the octatonic scale, etc., etc. Like, there's basically any way you could think of subdividing the 12 pitches of the chromatic scale in a symmetrical way. Seems like a lot of this is influenced by Tristan und Isolde by Wagner. Messiaen was a masterful organ improviser, and that's where a lot of his music starts, is with the act of improvising. And he was also devoutly Catholic. I think that's interesting. His interest in birds didn't really start until the 1950s, and sort of flourished in the 60s onwards. And I think his interest in birds started around the time his first wife was really struggling with mental health, and then he married his second wife, and just continued to have this interest. I guess he's talked about it being like very tied to his religiosity, right? So his view of like God and nature are sort of inextricably tied together. The most famous like bird song piece of his is his Catalogue d'Oiseaux, which is like some of the most, it's all done by ear, which is crazy, but it's some of the most like accurate transcriptions of bird song ever, in a very technical sense. But I don't think the general public understood what he was getting at when he first started the birdsong stuff. Because People already have a lot of cultural associations with birds and certain instruments, and Messiaen just sort of was more interested in what it meant to him and his performance practice at keyboard instruments. He has this book called Techniques of My Musical Composition, which I think would be a much better source to look at than watching me talk about it. He talks about modes a lot and color. He had synesthesia, so he literally saw sounds in a certain way and memorized them in a certain way. He was also interested in like medieval or antique composition techniques like isorhythm and things like that. So his music is often described as being very like ancient sounding in some ways and also very modern at the same time. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say about it. I guess I didn't really need this in front of me so much because I kind of just know all this. I mean, this is the kind of composer that you want to know a lot about them as part of your education. And then Chronochromie was completed in 1960, and it's a 7 movement, like 21-minute work. And the sixth movement has this birdsong idea where 18 different string instruments are all playing different bird songs at the same time. So that's going to be kind of interesting to look out for. So yeah, we're well into his birdsong period with this piece. Premiered in this German town of Donaueschingen in the state of Baden-Württemberg, conducted by Hans Rosebaud, an Austrian conductor who was closely associated with 20th century music. I guess he was an advocate for it. The recording that I'm listening to, which is a score video, is in the description to this video. Okay, yeah, so it's this is a very complicated piece. It's one of Messiaen's more dense scores, I think. The Ep123, the sixth movement, is really from just a recording, it's very difficult to pull out all the different parts, and it has a sort of like metronomic feel to it where eventually you just start hearing the beat. I'm not sure if it's meant to be like a traditionally contrapuntal work or if it's supposed to give this sort of hallucinatory feeling or something, but it is a lot of like birdsong things going on at the same time. The piece kind of alternates between these more contrapuntal stretches of music, like the two strophes, and then I think Messiaen is taking the same bird songs and then teasing them out and having the ensemble play them one at a time in the anti-strophes. So you get like this like twofold sort of image of the bird song, where like in the strophes each player is a bird. Same with the epode, like every player is sort of anthropomorphizing a bird, and then in the anti-strophes and the intro and the coda, you have groups of instruments playing these like bird harmonies. So groups of people are like trying to more accurately show you what the bird sounds like, and I think that was an interesting form. It kept my attention throughout most of the piece, and but I think a lot of these ideas all have already occurred in other pieces of Messiaen's. I think this is sort of like a culmination of ideas in a sort of ordered, structural, formal kind of piece. I don't think the Ep123 is my favorite movement. I think my favorite movements are actually the intro and the coda, which use some of the same material. They seem to be the lightest ones, and they make the best use of the percussion. You get really exposed percussion moments, which are kind of fun. We have a couple Messiaen scores coming up, but I don't think the next session will be one of them. Yeah, the next session will be a student of Messiaen's, Xenakis. So that'll be a fun comparison we can make.